He's in a plane. He's in a plane. Let's do it. So yeah, Superman. But just for a bit of clarification, I know there's other Superman films. I know they exist. And I know they are out there in the world. I've only seen Man of Steel and the James Gunn films. Which, to be honest with them, I thought Superman Man vs. Steel is fine. I didn't mind it as much compared to other people. I do admit that there are some things that I would prefer to be a little bit improved, obviously. But overall, yeah, this is falling on the floor. I know the idea of it being bad because a lot of people think it's not as good because it's a bit darker. But this one, I like. So I've always kept an ear out because, one, when James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy, I loved it. 1, 2, and 3. I know he's done other stuff. I haven't really seen it beforehand. I've also seen The Suicide Squad, which he did, which I also loved. So that made me sort of like, oh, he's going to like take over the sort of like DCU. And I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? And because I don't know much about DC, because with Marvel, I've seen a couple of their animated stuff, hence why I know some of their like a little bit obscure characters. So sometimes I pay attention to some of it, and I do actually look at some other characters in conversations. But with DC, I do know a bit, but not about powers. Like, I know this person called Question Master, and I know he's something to do with questions, and that's it. And some I do know a bit more. I do know Dr. Fate is the helmet and is connected. Young Justice explains that a bit better. So I don't know. That's not connected to this, but that's just my point of, like, I don't know too much. So I know Mr. Terrific exists, and I know he's one of the smartest people in the DC universe. I don't know if he is the smartest. I don't know. Again, someone could say he is, someone could say he is. I don't know. I can't claim either side. But I do know that because he's in... I've seen a couple of people talk about it in The Injustice, where he plays a big part of like the prison, which is in the comics, which is the prequels to the game. I'm just going through the characters. I also know there's multiple versions of the sort of Green Lantern, which includes, I think, 4 humans, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know all of their names, but which is really bad because the 2 I remember are the 2 that I think are the most interesting, including the one that was in the Ruby X. So Justice League. She's, I think, the way that someone described her, I'm like, I haven't heard of this character before. I only heard about it when she was talking about it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But I do know roughly Guy Gardner's character. You also have Hawkgirl, which again I commented about when I was talking about Black Adam, because Black Adam had Hawkeye on that movie, and because currently some of the older movies are questionable canonicity, I don't know if he's going to be Hawkeye still, or they're going to put a new person in. That is interesting, because I heard that they're going to get a new Batman, and that definitely they're going to get a new Flash, and certain things. But all of that being said, I do think they're interesting, and how they have this team that sort of supports it. Some of the villains, including the sort of one with like the nanobots, I think were really interesting. And I know she has her own series coming up soon with her own team, which I'm actually interested with. Because I know they're doing this gods and monsters vibe to it, which I think is really interesting. Again, none of this is really spoilers, but I think this is more interesting of what will come next. The spoiler stuff is fully in this movie. Because all of these heroes coming up, I think, does one thing which I think this movie does, which isn't like, by the way, here's Superman, we're going to introduce him. That's a gone thing. I think it's introducing certain things that's going to come back for like a theming of this sort of first couple of movies. I also think there's also going to be like, I think it's like a Batgirl something, or Supergirl. I don't know. You could correct me on that. There's something coming up before Batman because the script is done first. But surprisingly enough, do you know what you should do before you start doing any production? Finish the script. because that's useful. But yeah, the one thing, but there's sort of like three things, spoiler wise, that I think are interesting. One is the idea, I like the twist on the parents' message, where it's rule over. And I think a lot of people have talked about like, oh, is that what they actually said, or did it twist it in this? And I think it was actually what it said. It was really interesting. But I like the message of like, who cares? You also, I just like that because it's like, at the end, because at the beginning, here's my parents. At the end, here's my foster parents who actually did raise me. I like that message. You also then have the thing later with this sort of like the person with the U on the chest being sort of the Bizarro, a clone of Superman. Which I kind of knew beforehand alongside another quote, which I love, and kind of makes you see the earlier film in different lights in that sort of interesting way. And someone pointed it out, I think it was Straw Hat, who I saw the initial clip of, which is basically him like saying the thing, I'm agreeing with him, whereas like it's showing these sort of things where it's like envy. It's not that. Why am I always? I'm always a dumb person in forgetting and thinking something. No, but he was a person who brought attention when I first watched it, because I watched spoilers fully. Even stuff like, I'm sort of trying to get through this book. It's hard because my brain can't go through certain things, so I sometimes can be like, I'm going to put it down. But I sometimes look at spoilers. And when one of his videos hit my TikTok, he was talking about the importance of like, I didn't try and kill you because of the war. I started the war to kill you. Which is like, what the? You started a war to kill one guy. It's a bit of effort. Also, watch Straw Hat Goofy, but I'm pretty sure you already do that if you watch any of this. So, that's besides the point. All of that, it shows, like he said, it's like, yeah, I'm fully being like driven by like envy, and I'm just gonna run with it. And it's so dark in a fun way. So yeah, I do think this is really interesting and definitely 100% worth watching with all the different sort of like stuff. Because again, most of the things I was talking about is what's next for the DC, like the DC universe. Because with James Gunn at hand, I know there's a couple of things. I know, and also I don't have HBO Max. I know technically there was another thing that's alongside this. There's also Peacekeeper Thing and his series, but I don't watch those because I don't have access. So I'm going to be missing out on a couple of things. But I know there are 2 series already out. So yeah. But yeah, here, the poll, what my audience says. But yeah. And next, from like a super optimistic guy who does these optimistic things to something that legitimately might have a less thing on non-spoiler and a bigger thing on the spoiler section for obvious reasons. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, I hope you like this video. It is long, but yeah. And good night. And away.